What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at you live once again through the power of the internet. And tonight I thought I would tell my YouTube story. Now, a few years back, this was a trending thing here on YouTube. People telling their story about how they got into YouTube, how YouTube has impacted their lives and changed it, what led to that. And I never did make that video because I was kind of embarrassed. But I'm certainly not embarrassed anymore. The last 3 years of YouTube has been fantastic for me. You guys have made it fantastic. And I feel like it's time to finally talk about the story of how I got started. I joined back in 2006, and I created an account almost exclusively to manage other subscriptions and watching other people's content and just seeing the silly stuff that was on YouTube. I never had any intention of creating content. 2006 is the year that I decided I was going to start leaving the house again. Now, I would occasionally leave the house to eat lunch with friends, and once a week I would go grocery shopping, but for the most part, I was a complete shut-in. I was doing web design, but very sparingly. I was living off of savings that I had. I was selling off my magic cards on eBay to survive, and I was playing EverQuest and World of Warcraft exclusively, doing literally nothing else. Now, I still had a good number of my Magic the Gathering cards left, and I decided this would be the excuse I would use to get out of the house. They had just started this thing called Friday Night Magic, so I started going to a local gaming store and playing Magic there. And it wasn't too long before I was a judge at that store, helping judge Magic tournaments, and I was also working part-time behind the counter. So I had this cheap little camera that I would bring into work, and we would use it to film these short little sketches and silly little things, and we'd put them together in this series I called A Day at the Gallery of Champions. And I did it, I guess, in parts to support the store that I was working at, but I also did it in part because I was trying to fulfill some sort of fantasy of being an actor or director or doing something. And I watched other people on YouTube. I felt like I could do what they were doing, or at least do my own version of it, and people would watch. And surprisingly, people did watch it. And we actually got fans of the series. And we were getting, in some cases, hundreds of views, in other cases, thousands of views on these videos we were making. And that is a huge number, not just at the early days of YouTube back in 2007, but that is huge numbers to me personally, even still today. I will go see one of my favorite comedians in a venue, and that venue will only hold 1,000 people. So when one of these videos would get 1,000 or 2,000 views on it, I was ecstatic. That was perfectly positive feedback to me. So in the middle of 2008, everything changed. Number one, I either lost that camera or it broke. I don't really remember what happened to it. And secondly, I ended up in the hospital with an infection that started in my lymphatic leg that spread to the rest of my body. I was in the hospital for the better part of a month, and it took another 3 months for that leg to heal where I could stand on it. And the worst part about it is that is the third time that happened to me in my life. It nearly killed me for the third time, but I got out of it. But I lost my job. I lost all of my income. I was living off of my roommate at the time, who was able to help me pay my rent and get some basic food and stuff in the house, with the promise that if I eventually got my shit together, I would pay him back. YouTube became my outlet during that period of time. Now, I couldn't afford a new camera, and I couldn't afford a web camera, but fortunately for me, I had picked up on clearance Sony Play, which had the iToy camera in it. And I found drivers on the internet that let me turn that iToy camera into a camera that kind of worked for YouTube. That's how I started, just sitting in front of a web camera talking to it all the time, because I had no other way to film myself. I couldn't do interesting backdrops or interesting stuff. Really, all I could do was this. I started doing just whatever came to mind. I did the rambling videos in which I talked about life and the universe and everything else. I would do Christmas sketches. I would do all kinds of silly stuff, eating cereal in the dark. I tried doing shock value stuff too. Like, there were a lot of heavy-set people on YouTube back at the time, and all they were really doing is kind of taking off their shirts and shaking their business and like overeating on camera. I even tried some of that, but fortunately for me, I decided to go in a different direction because I'm still around and those people are not. So because I was so sick after that for a really long period of time and was unable to pay my medical bills, the hospital suggested I apply for disability to help pay for them and to help support myself. I really did not want to do that, but I did apply, and I waited for about the next year trying to get disability while also looking for work, and I never found work. Fortunately for me, I got my first viral video, and it is not what you think. It is not a Francis sketch. It was actually an optical illusion which I found a GIF on the internet, set it to some Kevin MacLeod music from Incompetech, and uploaded it as an optical illusion video. And that video got featured on YouTube. It was one of the highest performing videos, and YouTube offered me partnership because of it. I originally turned them down. I swear to God, I thought it was some sort of scam. I thought it was some sort of bullshit. I did not think that it was something that would actually work. Now, I had started returning to the local magic shop on Friday nights and playing Magic. And one night I was doing this voice, making fun of other players there who came to our tournaments. And I was making fun of them because they were always so serious about Dungeons and Dragons. It's the most serious game in the world. And the new owner of that shop suggested that's what I go put on YouTube. And that's when I started doing Francis sketches. Now, these videos were not successful originally. And it was 2009 by the time I started doing that. And I got a huge setback that year. My mom ended up getting very, very sick, and she passed in October of that year. And I spent pretty much the last part of 2009 in pretty crazy depression. Now, at that point, I'd met a lot of people through YouTube. And one of the people that I had met was a guy named Adam. And that Christmas, Adam helped me through that entire period of my life. It was a very, very dark, very, very shitty part of my life. But thanks to Adam, I survived it. Now, in February of 2010, I uploaded a video called Francis Gets His World of Warcraft Account Hacked. And I'm sure by now you've seen that video. Another YouTuber by the name of Ray William Johnson featured that video on a show called Equals 3. And that sent tens of thousands of people to that video, many of which chose to subscribe. And I had my first viral hit. And fortunately for me, YouTube then offered once again partnership, and this time I was smart enough to take it. Now, being on disability at that point had allowed me to pay back everyone I borrowed money from, have a little bit of spending money to buy new equipment for YouTube, like a new camera, and getting things up to a production value that people could actually watch. And Ray featuring that video and me getting partnership really was the best thing that ever happened to me, because thanks to YouTube, I was able to get off of disability. And that's pretty much my YouTube story. That's how it all got started. Ultimately, I got my first YouTube check, and it was for a few $100. Those checks got a little bigger and bigger each month. Eventually, I was able to get off of disability. And because the folks who run disability here in the United States felt that YouTube was, in fact, work, I ended up paying back pretty much every penny I ever got from disability, at tens of thousands of dollars. But I was glad to do it because I know that money would go to help somebody else, and maybe that person could start their own small business too. And that's pretty much the origin story of the supervillain Francis and his mild-mannered alter ego, Boogie2988. And this part of the story only brings us up to about 2010. So a lot of stuff happened after that, like meeting my wife and the PlayStation unboxing and all kinds of other cool stuff. If you guys want me to continue to the story, I will. I just didn't want this video to be way too long for anybody to actually watch it. Guys, thank you for watching. I love you very much, and I'll speak with you again soon. And I know some of you out there lived this story with me. Some of you have been watching since the very beginning. And if you're one of those people, now you got a special place in my heart.